Good afternoon, good evening, and good evening. Good afternoon, good evening, and good morning, everybody, and welcome to the second show that we've had today. Wow, the caffeine is still flowing through my system from this morning. Listen. I want y'all to know this. That before I even get started on this, I am super excited for what we are about to do here in like 30 seconds. I can already see Bobby in the green room. I can see his voice. His audio looks good. So I'm gonna bring him in a second, but I'm gonna keep him in the green room for 10 seconds while I brag about him so that he can't interrupt me and say something. But I have talked about Bobby on and off at various points in time on this show for the last 5 years that we've been streaming. I first got introduced to Bobby in 2015, and I gotta admit, he has had one of the biggest impacts on my career that I've had in cybersecurity. He's been a great friend and a great mentor, and I'm super excited to finally, after all of these years, Bobby, to be able to share the stage with you and finally to be able to do a stream with you. How are you doing, sir?
Listen, thank you for your kind words. I'm excited. I'm thankful to be here, and I appreciate you keeping me in the green room as you did that, because I would have interrupted you. Not because I don't like hearing positive things about myself, because I absolutely do. Uh, but to say that I've known Nick, like he said, sorry, I've known Neil now. The reason why I called him Nick is
Just
because
'cause-
let me give the backstory.
I was gonna
The reason
say,
why I called him Nick, because when I first met Neil,
yep,
he was part of a duo, and it was Nick and Neil,
yes.
like that. And so I've known Neil now for 10 years. I've always admired him. I've always thought that he's like the real deal. And he's had more of an impact and an effect on my career than I could have ever had on his. And so I consider it an honor to be here. I'm thankful. I know him as a cyber expert, and I know him as a person, and as phenomenal, and I mean this sincerely, as phenomenal a cyber expert that he is, he's even more phenomenal as a person. So thank you, and I'm glad to be here, bro.
Thank you, dude. And let me give you a little bit of Bobby's background really fast, because like I want you guys just to understand, like, unfortunately, like, here's what I do is I'm gonna drop Bobby's LinkedIn here inside a chat so you guys can go connect with Bobby. But Bobby's had an extensive great career in cyber. First and foremost, obviously he served in the military. He was Army. We won't fault him for that, but we will thank you, Bobby, for your service as always. You were, information security auditor, so you've been on the tactical side of things. You were divisional cybersecurity manager. You were deputy chief information security officer for Excelis. You were chief information security officer for Excelis. You were CISO at Abbott, which is where you and I got to work together. You were global CISO at Unilever, shampoos and soaps for chat who may not be overly familiar with Unilever's product line. You were global chief security officer at Hewlett Packard Enterprise, and now you're chief strategy and experience officer at Doppel. And I just want people to understand that, like, Bobby has always had some of these absolutely amazing, high profile, leadership roles, but that doesn't take away from the fact that he is at heart a hands-on practitioner. One of the things I've always respected about Bobby is he would call me in his office at Abbott, and he would be like, Neil, what's going on here? And I could explain it to him, and he would get it. And that was one of the things I always appreciate about working with you, is you'd always respect and appreciate both Doug and mine's opinion on things that we brought to you.
That's because I fundamentally believe, and people often say, like, what's the secret to your success? And I think that, like, I've been very, very fortunate, and I've always said, like, you got to let the experts be the expert. Like, you got to let the experts be the expert. And if you know it all, and you do it all, then you don't know as much as you think you know, and you're not doing as much as you probably should be doing.
I,
And so it's easy, like, just to let you all come in and be experts, bro.
well, so one of the things that's funny that you mentioned that, and one of the things that I think has come up on this show a lot when we talk about leadership styles, when we talk about what it takes to be a CISO at a large organization, is there seems to be a little bit of disconnect, if you will, in modern leadership, especially in the cybersecurity space, where you say that, let the experts be the experts, but then you'll get an analyst that comes in and says, well, why aren't we shutting down, RDP on every port across the network? Or why do we still have, 10 or 15-year-old vulnerabilities that show up on a vulnerability report? Where is that disconnect then between, letting the experts speak and actioning on what they recommend?
Um, I believe it's in understanding security's role in the organization. It's understanding, and what do I mean by that? Here's the illustration that I've used before. That once you realize that security is there so that the organization can take risk, once you fundamentally understand that the security is there so the organization can take risk, then you approach risk differently. And it's not that I'm here to tell you don't, set up that server in that remote location in the middle of that hostile environment. It's to say, hey, listen, I understand that that's a hot market. We got to set up that server because we got to kill it and crush it in that region. Here's what we need to do, right? Here are the controls that we need to deploy around that.
It,
And so once you fundamentally have that shift, then it's like, okay, now that I understand that we have to do this as an organization, we have to do this. And I hate using this term, so I won't use it much. But once I understand that we have to do this as a quote unquote business,
mm,
once I understand that, you know what, let me do something different. Once I understand we have to do that so that we can make money,
mhm.
I'm going to do all I can to protect the way that we do that.
You had this amazing analogy. I remember the first time I've talked about it on stream, and I won't do it justice, but very similar. You talked about when you and I first had this conversation. I remember all of us sitting in your office. It was me, Doug, and several of the other leadership
Remember
team.
that? Remember when people had offices?
Yes, yes, I do remember when people had offices. But you'd given the analogy about like if Miles wanted to go to the south side of Chicago, like we weren't going
Yeah.
to tell him no, that we weren't going to take him to the south side of Chicago.
Yeah, yeah. No, here's how I remember that
Yep.
too. And Miles, for those that don't know, Miles at the time, Miles White was our CEO.
Yeah.
And here's the way that I described it. I said, listen, if Miles hired us to perform personal security for him, and Miles said, hey, listen, guys, I want to go to the south side of Chicago. And we were like, nope, Miles, it's too dangerous to go there. And then he came back to us and said, you know what? Hey guys, I want to go to the east side of Boston. And we said, nope, nope, Miles, it's too dangerous to go there. Then he came back to us and said, you know what? Listen, I want to go to the north side of Dallas. And we're like, nope, nope, it's too dangerous. He would come back to us and say, wait a minute, what the hell did I hire you for? I hired you so that I can actually go to these locations. If I can't go there, then I don't need you. Like similarly in cyber, if we say no and you can't go there, then the organization doesn't need us.
I love it. I love it. And chat, this is why I'm excited to have Bobby here. An incredibly pragmatic, realistic, direct approach to cyber, and all things cyber. And so, thank you for that, Bobby. Thanks for reliving memory lane with us here in a little bit. Chat, just so you can kind of come to know what to expect, Bobby's going to be with us bi-weekly. We're going to be doing this Gone Fishing with cyber and security, every 2 weeks with Bobby. We're going to be talking about, things that are happening in cyber, but obviously with a tint and a slant towards towards a little bit of the social engineering, deep fake AI, type of slant, because that's kind of where Bobby's kind of landed himself. And I want to get this out in the open. So first and foremost, huge thanks to you and huge thanks to the CEO at Doppel for giving you the opportunity to spend an hour with us every 2 weeks. I really do appreciate that. But like me, you've spent a good amount of time over on the other side where we're protecting large organizations and we're working for companies. And now, like me, you're over here on the vendor side, if you will. And there's a little bit of a stigma that kind of comes with professionals like us being on this side versus being on the other side. Can you kind of talk a little bit as to what drove that shift for you?
Yeah, I appreciate the question. It was a couple things. Number one is I've always been responsible for one organization.
Mm,
Always been like for that one organization. I'm at a point now in my career, Neil, where I'm thinking about legacy.
mm.
And as I think about legacy, I think that on this side, I can have a broader impact on the industry as a whole. And so that was the first driver. Like, how can I solidify my legacy and have a broader impact so that I can be part of an organization that did something for, hundreds, if not thousands, of different organizations from a cyber perspective. That's the first thing. And then the second thing is I joined Unilever. Let's start. I joined Abbott in its 127th year.
Yeah. Yeah.
I joined Unilever in its 87th year.
Wow. Yeah.
I joined HPE in its 82nd year.
Wow.
I
Wow.
joined Doppel in its second year.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right. So it's and so it's the opportunity to really, really build something. And so that so those two things. Number one, all about legacy, and then number two about legacy and impacting multiple customers, hundreds of customers, and then building something.
We're not going to talk about it on this stream, but we will at some point in time talk about the challenges of going into a 125-year-old company and trying to build a security
Oh yeah.
program up from scratch. We'll talk about that
Oh
later.
yeah. Yeah. You were there for that.
I was. That's why I said we'll pick that scab later.
Yeah, you were there for that.
I want to ask you some hard questions then, as you're on this side with me and trying to impact multiple organizations. I want to ask some of the harder questions now that you don't necessarily have to stick to the company line when it comes to the CISO behavior, right? So, having led multiple large global companies, I want you to be 100% honest with us.
Yeah.
Is the modern CISO job even doable anymore? Or have we created a role that guarantees burnout, it underperforms, internal controls are completely and totally useless in actually protecting attackers? Like, how dead is the current CISO role?
I appreciate that question. And I'll answer that question. Um, I'll go a roundabout way in answering that question, and hopefully
Mm-hmm.
I'll give some context as to why it's such a challenge now.
Mm-hmm.
I remember watching a press conference for some type of incident that happened in Dallas, Texas. And at this incident, I forget the particulars of it, but the chief of police of Dallas at that time came to the podium and he was talking about the incident. And I think it was something like the Dallas Police Department was under fire from like some gunman.
Mm.
And so the chief of police was talking about how difficult it was for being a police officer.
Mm.
And when he spoke about it, the example that he used, he said that, hey, listen, Dallas, Texas right now has a dog problem. And when people see random dogs running down the street, the first thing that they do is they call the police because they figure, hey, it's the police, handle this. Um, People have always looked at security like that. If
Mm.
ever there was an issue or a challenge that no one else was responsible for, then they gave it to security. You remember this well
Mm-hmm.
when we were at Abbott. Remember, we were responsible for app inventory.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And the challenge was, hey, how can you dare say that you're protecting it if can't see it? And how can you say you can see it if you don't have inventory of it? So logically, you should be responsible for the CMDB and you should manage application inventory.
I hated you. I hated you for this conversation 100 ways to Sunday.
Yeah. And never mind that there was an entire team, which was much larger than our team, responsible for app management.
Mm-hmm.
It's like,
Mm-hmm.
you're responsible for application inventory. And so that's one of the challenges. I was talking to this young guy that I mentor and just talking about how difficult it is to be a CISO. Because if I'm responsible for applications, then that's my jam. I'm responsible for applications.
Mm-hmm.
If I'm responsible for legal, that's my jam. I'm responsible for legal.
Mm-hmm.
If I'm responsible for infrastructure, that's my jam. I'm responsible for infrastructure. Only in cyber are you expected to be, knowledgeable about applications, knowledgeable about infrastructure, knowledgeable about, legal. You're supposed to know some of everything,
Mm-hmm.
because you have to manage the operational aspect of it, the financial impact of it, the regulatory impact of it. So that's why it's such a challenge. Is it doable? Absolutely. Absolutely. Are there individuals right now in the role that are crushing it as a CISO? Of course, of course. Is it far more challenging than it has to be? For 100%.
I'm going to ask this question because I think that it's absolutely relevant. I can remember on this stream particularly, AI's been a topic of conversation for 5 years of streaming, and obviously in the last couple of years, it's grown in voice across multiple verticals and conversations, especially in cyber.
Yeah.
Um, do you think that AI has disrupted currently, or will in the short term disrupt our view of cybersecurity?
I'm more optimistic about our chances to defend against cyber attacks thanks to the benefits of AI slash large language models.
Okay.
So I'm more bullish on it. But to answer your question, will it disrupt? Absolutely, absolutely. But I think it will disrupt it in a good way.
Do you think people?
If if we know how to leverage it
uh,
better and in a good way.
as a leader, do you think it will lead to unemployment in the cyberspace?
In the short term, yes, unfortunately. In the short term, yes, unfortunately. In the long term, no.
I
In the
like it.
long term, I think that right now what's happening is that, and I heard it put like this a couple weeks ago, and I was like, that's it exactly. I think that we overestimate the benefits of it in the short term and underestimate the benefits of it in the long term.
I like it. That's clippable,
Yeah.
chat. That's clippable. Let's get that one out there. All right, Bobby. Thanks for entertaining me. Let's get into something a little bit more topical. Obviously, we want to spend a lot of time. One of the things that I've always respected about you is that when you take on knowledge, you take it on deep, and being exposed, kind of to your point, where you're at an organization where you're exposed to a lot of you're exposed to a lot of other Fortune 100, Fortune 10 companies. You're talking to a lot of CISOs. You're talking to a lot of security leaders, that are out there. We want to try to surface as much of that knowledge as possible, so that we can kind of share it with the community. And so, I want to talk a little bit about the modern attack surface, particularly as we talk about brands. I've had numerous folks on this stream where we've talked about where they actually think that AI's biggest challenge from a cybersecurity perspective is its use in deep fakes. And we've seen a ton of this, even notionally, where they've had AI, impersonate CEOs' voices to do business
Yeah.
email compromise. They've done some
Yeah.
deep fake on Zoom calls. We know that we've got issues with DPRK, using deep fake technology to fake interviews to get into organizations and do malicious stuff inside of there. And so, obviously that erodes at a trust layer that we have in cyber, where I can look at you, you can look at me. To your point, it's been a long time since we've both been in an office, but I trust that it is you on the other side of this call right here. And so, from your perspective, why is this trust layer? Why is this trust layer, this digital footprint, why is that becoming one of the more important parts of modern security?
And when you say trust layer, do you mean at the human layer aspect, sort of like that eighth layer?
Yeah,
You
yeah.
mean, yeah, I think that it's because as we make these rapid advancements in generative AI, and I say this all the time, and I'll continue to say this. So you've heard me say this before, but I'll continue to say it. As we make these rapid advancements in generative AI, we're rapidly approaching a time when you can't distinguish the real from the fake. When you just can't. You can't distinguish a real voice from a fake voice. You can't distinguish a legitimate email from a fake email. You can't, distinguish a real video from a fake video. And so, with that in mind, the way that we think of trust, the way that we think of trust is going to fundamentally change. And the way that we think of multi-factor authentication is going to fundamentally change to where it's going to be, hey, listen, I know I see you and I know I hear you, but here's a question, and I'm just using like the most basic
Mm-hmm.
level. Here's a question that only you will know.
Mm-hmm.
Here's a question that only you will know. What's the name of the restaurant that we used to go to outside of Abbott Park,
Mm-hmm.
for lunch?
Mm-hmm.
And it'll be random things like that that we'll use to establish trust. And it's not because I can't see you, and it's not because I can't hear you, but it's because I don't know if the you
Mm-hmm.
that I'm speaking to is actually you.
this is, you mentioned it a little bit earlier, right? One of the first things
By the
that,
way, do you know the name of that restaurant? Just out of curiosity,
I
while I'm
could I
validating.
could see it in my head. I can see the restaurant in my head. I could see us pulling up there in your
Okay, so
Audi and
so
my
so here's a question, because now I'm wondering who you really are. Here's a question. When we would leave Abbott Park, did we make a right or a left to get to
Oh,
it?
we made a right. We totally made a right. Yeah,
There you go.
yeah.
All right,
And so
I trust
we
you.
went and we actually went down one, two, three, four stoplights. It was right in front of the fourth
You
stoplight,
got
right in front of that
it.
gas station.
You got it. You got it. That's right.
Like I said, I may
I
not remember the
validated.
name of the restaurant, but I could totally remember how to drive there.
Multi-factor. See what I'm
Right.
saying?
It is, but I mean, it's funny that you're in this position and talking about this, because the incident that you and I were talking about earlier when we did the dry run was an identity-based incident that we had worked on it together at Abbott.
You're exactly right. It was Operation Oscar Bravo.
That's right.
Operation Oscar Bravo. And you know what? I'm so glad we're having this conversation, because it actually goes back to prove, and I love when I can prove a point that I've made. It goes back to prove the point that I made, that for everyone that's on, it was an
I
incident
was going to say,
where our help
explain all
desk.
this to Chad. Yeah.
So it was an incident where our help desk had been socially engineered into giving away the credentials of one of our executives. And here's what's so funny about it. What's so funny about it is that our executive was this middle-aged dude. Uh, was this middle-aged dude that was definitely born and raised in the Midwest. Uh, and the person that called in impersonating him was using like one of the
Oh yeah.
heaviest accents that you had ever heard before. And when we listened to the recording, we were like, how could they not tell that that wasn't so and so? And that was our thinking. And so we
Yes.
went through this long campaign where we
Yes.
had to re-educate the help desk on, hey, here are our 8 executives.
Hmm.
And here's where each of them are from, and here's what they all sound like, so that it would never happen again. It's scary to think that that was back in 2015,
15.
16.
Yeah.
Yeah,
15.
2015. Now we wouldn't be able to use that same training. And the person that committed that, or the person that launched that attack, would be able to actually use Oscar Bravo's real voice to get the password, to get the credentials reset.
Not only is that scary to think of today, and Chad, just so you know, this is the first time that Bobby called me up and pimped out my OSINT capabilities and had me do threat profiles on every member of the C-suite, which led to some very uncomfortable conversations. Bobby, thank you for that.
Exactly. Which is why I will never do that again. Ever.
But at the time, the company that had been socially engineered for this executive was claiming to use an AI voice analysis to verify that this executive's voice did or didn't match what was on the telephone. They were claiming to be using AI back in 2015 to solve this, and it wasn't able to detect the problem then.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Absolutely. And so, like I said, it just makes it even scarier. And so when you talk about disrupting, yeah, it absolutely will disrupt. I'm bullish and I'm hopeful that we on the good side will be able to leverage it in such a way that, if not necessarily even the playing field, that we can make it a less asymmetric warfare.
But to your point, like it unequivocally erodes trust. And I think naturally,
Yeah.
as we have this conversation, this leads into AI's role in detection and response, right? Because back to this particular company, we won't name and shame them on stream, but they claim to have had AI voice recognition that's in there, and it was
Yeah.
obviously hot garbage then. But now we're
Right.
here, like everybody and their brother has AI and detection and response. And one of the stories that I tell is in 2020, after I left Abbott and I went to RSA with Paulo at Mondelez to go there. AI was everywhere in 2020. Like that was like the first real RSA where like everybody was touting AI and detection and response. And I've oftentimes joked that now most of those vendors have to go and recant their story that they didn't really have AI then, but they really, really have AI now.
Right.
And so I have to ask you, over the course of the years, how do you see AI's role today in modern day, because obviously we've seen a lot of it over the years as we've been in this role, what is AI's current role in detection and response? To your point, as this trust issue gets harder, as it becomes indistinguishable from real and fact, does AI even have a chance? Is AI the only chance that we have to being able to disrupt these attacks?
Absolutely, yes. It takes AI to defend against AI. It takes large language models to defend against large language
You
models.
believe that? You believe that in your core?
In my core, I believe that. I believe that right now, if you're not having conversations with your teams, and this is speaking to the practitioners, to the operators, if you're not having conversations in within your teams about how are you planning to leverage some form of large language models, either in the products that we use. So are you having conversations with your third party suppliers about how they're leveraging and embedding AI technology into the products, or are you planning on leveraging it in your existing processes? I envision a world where you will have two org charts. You'll have one organization chart that is made up of people, and you'll have
Mm.
another organization chart that's made up of complete AI bots.
Does it sound familiar, chat? Does this sound familiar, chat? Well, let me pick on this a little bit, because we have a healthy mix in chat of people who understand that they need to embrace it, and then we've got folks like Brian in chat. Brian knows I'm speaking to him. Yeah, there he goes. I knew he'd start chiming up as soon as I said his name. Who are like, no, FAI, like we're not doing this AI conversation at all. Like, how do you balance the rumors, the failed expectation meeting, the marketing hype? Like, how do you sift through all of that?
Here's what's so funny about you talking about like marketing hype. Now that I am here and I'm in this world, and it started when I was at HPE, because HPE is a technology provider also. Uh, I appreciate marketing more than I ever have before.
Oh, Jesus, maybe I made a mistake having you on stream. I'm going to lose
I do.
everybody
Yeah, yeah,
now.
yeah. Here's why. Here's why. Because in when you think about, and I've heard someone call it like marketecture.
Yeah, yeah.
When you think about it, we said that cloud was a marketing term.
Mm.
I remember wearing a t-shirt that said there's no such thing as the cloud.
It's everybody else's
That's
computers.
It's somebody else's computer.
Yeah, yeah,
It- we still use the term to this day, cloud.
yeah.
It hasn't gone anywhere. Um, I wasn't a fan of the term, and you see it like I'm sort of using them interchangeably.
Mm-hmm.
I wasn't a fan of AI. I was more of a fan of large language models.
Mm-hmm.
I was like, hey, AI, that's a marketing term,
Mm-hmm.
but I don't think it's going anywhere.
Yeah.
I really don't. And so I think we have to embrace it. We can fight it, and typically practitioners like to fight things.
Yes, they
I'm going
do.
to bet. Now, I wasn't there. I wasn't there because I'm not that old, so I wasn't there. However, I'm willing to bet, Neil, that when calculators were first invented, that it was mathematicians that fought against using them.
I'd take that bet. That's probably pretty true. Yeah.
I believe it was mathematicians who were like, oh, this isn't real. This is fake. There's no way you could do math. It's going to erode our knowledge of how. And all it did was enable us to work on harder problems
Mm-hmm.
and
Mm-hmm.
solve deeper and more complex math equations.
Did
I
you
think that's what AI is going to do for cyber.
did you see something like obviously, like, I imagine you had to have been working on AI at HPE. I'm sure that Unilever had something going on. What was your moment where it turned you to a believer?
Oh, I do. I'm so glad you asked that question because I never thought about it before. And for those that have never been guests on the show, something that Neil told me before the show was like, I'm not going to give you any questions, because I want to get the real and authentic you out there. And I told him, I was like, well, it may make for a great show, but it will definitely damage my reputation. Like like I've spent all of this years working on how to not be my authentic self, and so I'm glad. Here's when I became a true believer in its power to help us work on more complex problems.
Hmm.
So I won't use any names, but at my last organization, I had tasked someone that worked for me to develop a policy. And so I said, hey, listen, why don't you go work with this consulting firm, bring them on board? Because that's the playbook that I've
Hmm.
always used. Work with this consulting firm, bring them on board, have them develop a set of policies, and then we sort of massage that. We then deploy it. That's normally a 3 to 4 month engagement.
Hmm.
And we would spend 2 to 3 hours every week of this 3 to 4 month engagement developing a set of policies.
At the
Okay,
low
so
cost of $1.5 million, mind you.
exactly. So the first time I got access to one of these generative AI products, I went to the same person again. I said, "Hey, where are we with the policies?" And they came back to me and they said, "Listen, I'm meeting with so and so. I'll have something back to you in 2 weeks." Bro, I won't say the name, but I
Hmm.
went to this large language model and I typed up, write a set of information security policies for an organization that deploys infrastructure at scale with X amount of employees, X amount of suppliers. I said, give me 6 different policies. And I said, use this NIST framework to develop the policies. Then also give me an ISO based standard policy.
And
And it
arguably,
came back,
you shouldn't be doing this at the level that you were at in this
but
organization.
it took me roughly a minute and a half. I came back with this suite of policies. I sent it to him. I said, take a look at this and let me know what you think.
Mm.
He came back. He said, can we talk tomorrow? We developed and deployed it within 2 days. So again, think about it. Before, my mind was this is so when I think about the areas where it can immediately have an impact, right? I have this simple framework. It can immediately help us with policy writing.
Yeah, yeah.
Immediately, it can help us with policy writing. It can immediately help us with staff aug.
Hmm.
And by staff aug, I don't mean actually replacing employees. I don't know of any person right now that can't use additional help. I don't know anyone's like, no, I don't need any help. I'm good. So if you could use additional help, why not create a bot that helps you?
Hmm.
So it can immediately help us with staff aug. And then of course, automation.
Yeah.
A lot of these low level tasks that we spend lots of time, the bulk of it, you've worked incidents
Hmm.
before. The bulk of incident response is cut and paste from one
Hundred
platform
percent.
to another.
100%.
That's a bulk of it. Cut and paste one platform to the other, like search scripts, one
Hmm.
platform to the other.
Hmm.
Why not automate that?
I think one of the things, you're absolutely right, and as you're talking through this, I remember a conversation that you and I had, several times, whether it was after Oscar Bravo or any of the other incidents that we had. WannaCry was another great one where we did
Mhm.
that.
Yeah. Can
Visualize,
I? So I don't mean to cut
yeah,
you
no,
off,
go
but
for it, go for it, have at it. Yeah, yeah, this is your show.
no, I appreciate it. So this is me showing Neil some love. So wanna cry. We had when we were at Abbott, we had no, it wasn't WannaCry, but it was just before Abbott. I mean, it was just before WannaCry, where we had an incident that took place in Vietnam.
Oh yeah, go ahead, go ahead, go ahead.
I I shouldn't be laughing, but I mean, like it's why I love you the way that I do. We had an incident in Vietnam that took place. I called Neil and Doug on
Yeah, yeah.
a Sunday morning, and said, "Hey, do you have plans this week?" He was like, "What is it?" I was like, "We need someone to go over to Vietnam." They got on a plane, if not that night, the next morning.
It was the next day. It was the very next
It
day.
was the next day.
I had to
Got on the
call. I had
plane
to call
to
Susie at home and be like, "Can you help me figure out how to get a visa in Vietnam?"
and went to Vietnam like in less than 24 hours. That's incident response. And the reason why like it gave them comfort knowing that there was an expert there. I think that we're rapidly approaching a time when we can send a bot as opposed to sending a body.
I don't hate that, but one of the things that you talk about it, because like whether you talk about Vietnam, whether you talk about WannaCry, whether you talk about Oscar Bravo, or any of the hundreds of other incidents that we work together, one of the things that you talk about, as you mentioned that like as an incident responder, you're doing a lot of copying and pasting, you're doing a lot of PowerPointing, you're doing a lot of show me presentations, you're doing a lot of show me attacks.
Yeah.
And one of the things that I think that models have the biggest ability to help us with in their current instantiation is visualizing attacks, graph-based illustration of attacks.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I think that's a great point, and it's something that I actually use our instance I won't say the name again. It's one of the things that I use our instance of our large language model for. It's, hey, build me an image, and then I'll give it the parameters, right? I'll give it the correct prompts, and sometimes, and I saw someone put this in the chat, and they're absolutely right. I think that sometimes we underestimate the power of prompt engineering.
Oh yeah. Again,
that
Chad, sound familiar, Chad?
That we underestimate the power of actually getting it right.
Yeah.
And how it saves ourselves cycles. And the last thing I'll say is, like I said, I'm really bullish on it, is that there are repetitive things. Yeah, that's it. That was it. Trash in, trash out. Good prompts. Exactly. There are repetitive things that I would feel uncomfortable going to a person asking for. Nah, that doesn't look right. Try again. Nah, that doesn't look right. Try again. I've honestly gone through sometimes, and I think the highest count was like 68. Try it again. Try again. Try again. Try again. And it just keeps doing it. It doesn't get frustrated. Like that to me is one of the best benefits of using it to either create an image, write a report, or to write a policy.
I want to go back to this. You glossed over this, and I don't think that this is worth glossing over, but you talked about how you use, in your current role, you use that graphing capability to kind of highlight some attacks and whatnot as you consult with folks and whatnot. Have you noticed, just in the cultural interaction that you've had with folks when you show them visually the attack, is that more meaningful than them than, say, when you and I were doing incidents and we would have to try to put a slide in front of Nancy or anybody else that just had a bunch of words on it, couldn't like really show the attack in its full form?
Yeah, for sure. Picture's worth 1,000 words.
Yeah.
Picture's worth 1,000 words. If the way that we work, and when you take a step back, so I was a philosophy major, you know that I was a philosophy major, and something that I don't know if you remember this, but I asked the team to read the Fifth Discipline when I was there, and in the Fifth Discipline, Peter Senge, who's a systems thinker, he talks about mental models.
Yeah.
Like whether you know it or not, whenever you're referencing something, you're actually going through a mental model.
Yeah.
That's why whenever you work with people who have like these phenomenal memories, they always talk about how they actually remember it. And I remember once, and here's a party trick. If you ever ask someone to remember 8 different things, right? Today, remember these 8 different: keychain, cell phone, lip balm, microphone, like 8 different things, that those that can actually remember it, it's because their mental model is such a way. Like the way that I do it is I envision a house. And so like, hey, I use the front door to unlock the key. I mean, I use the key to unlock the front door. Then once I get in there, I put my lip balm and my cell phone out of my pocket and place it on the desk. But you know what I mean? So it's this mental model. So to your question, does having a visual help? Absolutely. Because then you don't have to create the mental model. It's right there in front of you.
Yeah. I'm going to pivot on you a little bit because, now that I've like lowered your guard, we've reestablished some rapport after, years of being apart, and your guard's a little down and you haven't had a long time to prepare. I'm going to put you on the spot about something that is actually kind of key to Doppel's mission, because I do think it's important to call out.
Yeah.
I remember at Abbott, we evaluated companies like ZeroFox. We paid an exorbitant amount of threat intelligence from companies like Recorded Future, and I got no problem bashing companies like that because they were absolutely useless at the time in the value that they provided. But one of the things that you and I first went head to head on was our good friend, and I won't say his name, but I'll try to tell you what he did so you can remember who I'm talking about. But he
Okay.
loved the Insider Threat program and was all about those phishing click through rates and
Yeah.
yeah.
Okay.
And it was one of the things that we first tried to put a metric up in front of leadership about
Yeah.
social engineering engagements and click-through rates, and we fought over how garbage they were and whatnot. And you were vehement that we had to continue to do that because we needed to
Yeah.
continue to show leadership that the organization was failing in their social media or their social engineering exercises. And now you're at a company were you just measuring click-through rates differently on your social engineering exercises?
No, so I think that's great, and I appreciate it. I won't say that my thinking has changed. I won't say that. I will say, well, I guess it has changed because I was gonna say, I thought I was about to say something like super profound. I was gonna say, look, I was about to say it hasn't changed. It's evolved, but
Oh
if it
God, I'm so
evolved,
glad you didn't say that. Thank you. They would
I caught
scratch that one
myself.
from the record.
I had to remember who I was talking to. I caught myself. I will say that my thinking has changed. I think that organizations still need to measure click rates. I think they do. Not because it's an effective metric. I think because people are so accustomed to it and they're so used to it that they have to have it.
This is the
And
AV
you know,
thing with compliance all over again. We can't get
yeah,
rid
yeah,
of it
yeah.
because people are used to measuring it.
Yeah. Yeah, it's absolutely a requirement. It's absolutely a requirement. And so you want to make sure that you're measuring it. You want to make sure that you're measuring it. But it's not the full picture. It's not the whole story. And I think that a more effective metric is, and I get what you were saying, which is why I said you all have impacted my career more, or you've impacted my career more than I've impacted yours. I get what you were saying because one click was too many.
Mm-hmm.
One click was too many. And so even if we got our click rate down to 3%, 3% of 80,000 employees, it only takes, and then not all clicks are the same.
Mm-hmm.
Like our founder and CTO likes to say, a regular user clicking on an email is a lot different than a super user clicking
Mm-hmm.
on an email.
Absolutely.
So not all clicks are the same. And so you want to continue to measure click rates, but eventually you want to get to a point to where you're actually looking beyond email and you're measuring something that we like to call social engineering susceptibility. And when you start looking at social engineering susceptibility, it's when I look across multiple channels, how likely is my organization to fall for a phishing attack?
Isn't
Or
that
how
is
how
it
how likely is my organization to fall for a social engineering attack, I should
isn't
say.
that largely a psychological or a personnel problem?
Every- so let's have this conversation
Yeah.
because I was actually thinking about this earlier in the gym. Um, isn't everything that we do a personal or a human problem? Like
Ooh.
have we reached a point? Have we reached a point where any type of system is doing something for the system's sake?
Okay, I see where you're going. I see where you're going with this. Okay.
Even if I automate these defenses, it's to protect my users.
Sure.
Even if I'm an attacker and I've automated my attacks, ultimately I'm going to benefit from that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Have we reached the point in, and it's why some people don't like the term artificial intelligence. They like
Mm-hmm.
augmented intelligence, right? They like large language. But have we reached the point to where any system is doing something for the sake of the system? I don't think we have. So I think everything is a human problem.
So you think then it becomes a little bit easier when we start to look at organizations in that human aspect. We should be looking at almost I would say like the same thing that we've done for years when we've looked at what's the exploitability of an organization based on their attack surface or based on the number of vulnerabilities or critical vulnerabilities in, externally exposed infrastructure, yada, yada, all these types of things. We're just now adding another layer to that attack surface that's more on that human element, that human side of things.
And feel free to push back on me.
Oh, I
I
will.
don't think yeah, I don't think that we're adding another layer. I think that we're adding another technology,
Okay.
or that we're adding another tool. At its core, and that's why I say push back
Yeah.
on me, because at its core, I think of LLMs, I think of AI as just another tool.
Mm-hmm.
I thought of cloud like it's another tool. I think, the internet is just another tool.
And I would
Mobile is just another tool.
And I would envision that models that are trained, I mean, right now, all models are trained on human existence anyway, right? So, I mean,
Mhm.
they only ever know what it was that we've only ever experienced as humans. And so I would
Yeah.
imagine that in the world of social threat detection, it's probably easier to teach a model to look for human behaviors that are outside the norm than it is in some cases technical indicators.
It's easier, definitely, but it also, I was going to use the word evolves, but it also gets stronger and then starts predicting.
Mm,
And that's the difference. The
mm.
difference is I'm not just responding and I'm not just reacting, but I'm actually predicting what's going to happen so that I can actually. Here's the goal. The goal is to not, we think about security as prevent, detect, respond.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Right now, the bulk of the money that we spend as an industry is on response.
Absolutely.
That's where
We
the
we
bulk
like
of the
we like to
money.
prevent. We like to pretend it's prevent, but it sucks
Yeah.
in that realm.
Yeah. We don't spend money there. We spend money on response, and there's so many reasons that is. It's not just our fault, but it's like have an incident, you get an unlimited budget, you get a
Mm-hmm.
blank check, and
Mm-hmm.
so I throw a bunch of stuff in there. All right, so prevent, detect, respond. We spend so much on response. I would say that I don't even think that the goal is to prevent. Like I want to get move, even further out and call it predict.
Mm.
Because if I can predict it, then I spend less on prevention.
Is that possible though? Because I can remember again sitting in your office, and we've talked about moving to the left, moving detections to the
Yeah.
left.
Yeah.
We
And see,
thought
and that's why I
we
didn't want to call it moving to the left. Because I think when we talk about moving to the left, we're talking about prevent. I think it's going beyond that.
mm, more we're throwing the proverbial proactive in the conversation.
It's truly like you remember Minority Report.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Absolutely.
Like
100%.
and pre-crime,
Yep.
it's predicting it so that I'm stopping and I'm disrupting the infrastructure before it has a chance to launch an attack.
So why do we keep getting this wrong? Like this is where I will push back on you is
Okay.
again, we've had this conversation. We've had it with AI and ML. We've had it with SOAR. We've had it with again to your when it was move it to the left, let's add another firewall or let's add a WAF or let's add a CASB or let's add I remember sitting in a CISO forum at RSA where all the CISOs around me were asked like what was the biggest disappointment of technology that year, and CASB, everybody threw up their hands for CASB. It was the most useless technology that what delusion are you under, Bobby, where you think that we will actually be able to get to a place to do actual true predictive prevention?
Because when I think about the benefit of AI and it freeing us up of menial operational tactical task so that we can focus on higher level problems, that's why I think that this is different. And I honestly believe that. I think that we're living in a different time. I think that this moment there will be companies. I think there are tons of companies out there, like tons.
Yeah.
I don't think all of them or all of us will survive. I don't
Yeah,
believe that.
100%.
I don't believe all of us will survive. I think that those of us that will be really, really successful will lean into how different this time is.
Yeah,
How different this time is. And how are we enabling organizations to stop doing some of that low level stuff?
I agree with that. I agree with that.
I don't think it's just about sort of ripping and replacing. I don't think it's just about rationalizing. I think it's about doing something completely different.
Yeah,
Completely different. Social engineering, forever it's been a challenge.
absolutely.
Forever. And we've always thought that we can education and awareness our way out of the problem. And so we would, have these huge, and I won't say any names, you remember me getting in trouble. We will pay large budgets for these education and awareness
Oh,
teams and
I
education and
remember
awareness
that specifically. Yes.
these education and awareness teams and these education and awareness platforms. I think that it takes an organization to come in and say, no, you can't education and awareness your way out of this. You have to have a solution. You have to have one throat to choke that says this solution is going to focus on social engineering,
Hmm.
and just like you have one solution that focuses on endpoint detection, and you have one solution that focuses on network, disruption and network detection. I have one solution that focuses on social. And so those are the companies I think will survive.
So we're coming up to the top of the hour, Bobby, and I know that your time is insanely hard to get. There was one question from chat that I will throw up there. Is there any benefits to helping users navigate the non-menial task with AI?
Is there any benefit to helping users navigate the non-menial task? So I take it that the question means, and like, here's where I'll need your help. The question means, should we have users focus on higher level tasks as opposed to sort of the more tactical things? Is there
I,
any benefit to that?
that's how I would read that too. Is like we always
Yeah,
talk about having them do their tactical level task and having
yeah.
AI agents work for them. What about moving left? How about more important strategic decision making?
Oh yeah, absolutely. But I think that before I would do that, I would focus on the blocking and tackling.
Mm,
I would focus on leveraging the model to do the stuff that I've already mastered.
mm,
Because I do believe that you need an individual, you need a person, you need an expert in the mix. And so before I would have it go up to the non-menial, I would make sure that all the menial stuff is taken care of. I think that helps you with two things. I think that number one, that helps you actually train the model that you're using so that it learns your organization. And then number two, I think it helps you convince the team that it's here not to replace people,
mhm.
but to replace menial tasks so that you can. To me, if I brought it in and said, hey, I wanted to focus on the non-menial stuff right away, if I were part of someone's team, I'll say, well, does that mean I'm left doing the menial stuff?
Right.
So you're going to want me to do that? I think it's an easier conversation to have to say, hey, it's going to do the low level tier 1, tier 2 stuff so that you can focus on tier 3 through 5.
I love this, and I love this conversation because that's something that I've advocated for. Is that I think we should start thinking that we're going to change the definition of entry level. So you can almost imagine that an entry level SOC analyst comes in and their year one is actually, to your point, managing a team of AI agents that's helping them with incident response almost right off the bat.
Yep, absolutely.
Maz has got a question as well. As somebody who's interested in AI, I'm always looking for good quality books to read. Have you read any lately that you would suggest?
Yeah, in fact, and I'm trying to find the name of it right now.
And we can ask one of the mods to go get an ISDN and a link when
All
it
right,
comes.
so it's a book that was written by Reed Hastings. I can't remember the name of it right now. Um, but basically he had ChatGPT write a book. So he like asked it questions. He asked it questions and then he had it actually write a book. Or was it Reed Hoffman? Maybe it was Reed Hoffman. You know what? I think it was Reed Hoffman. That's why
Yeah,
I can't find it.
yeah.
I think it was Reed Hoffman. Which one was LinkedIn? The
Which one
guy
was?
that wrote it. Which one? Reed Hoffman books. Give me just a second.
Yeah.
Uh,
Like I said, while Bobby's looking at those,
oh,
I'll always talk about like my go-tos. My go-tos are always prompt engineering books, baby. To Bobby's
oh,
point, go
yeah,
for some
yeah,
prompt engineering books.
yeah, yeah, You got it. I cannot find it. I will find it though,
You
and we'll
can
get
text
back
it to
to
me.
you.
You can text it to me later, and we'll get it up on the socials for
Yeah, yeah,
everybody.
yeah. Cool, 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 cool.
There
But
was
that was the last book that I actually read on like work related stuff. Mostly I just read, fiction.
Bobby. In the last 5 minutes, I want to take 5 minutes to say an hour will never be enough, which is why I'm glad that we've got multiple episodes to chat with you. Thank you so very much on behalf of me and my community. Before I let you go, why did you want to do this with me? What do you see the next few episodes looking like? What is it? What is your goal and objective with putting my community through another hours of abuse between you and I?
So the first thing, thank you so much for the time. I saw it's in the chat, impromptu. That's the name of the book.
Mm,
Uh, yeah, and it's really cool because it changed the way I thought about how to actually use
mm,
Chat GPT and Perplexity. Here's what I hope the goal is. I hope the goal is for us to have conversations that get people to challenge our thinking on the impact that generative AI is going to have on social engineering attacks. I think that before, when you consider how long an attack actually took, and when you think about the MITRE kill chain and going from, sort of recon to command and control, AI is going to take days and weeks and turn it into seconds and minutes.
mm-hmm,
And
mm-hmm.
so if that's going to happen, we have to rethink our approach and our defense. And so I would just love to have conversations where we come to the table with what we think, and then the chat tells us, "Nah, I don't think that," or "Yep, that's absolutely right," or "Hey, what about this point?" Because as you know, like I want to learn.
Mm-hmm.
I want to really, really learn from. I said it earlier, and I'll stop blowing smoke. I promise the next time I won't, kiss ass this much. But the reason why Neil was so critical in me building out the team at Abbott is because Neil attracts talent. He really does. Typically, the people that are attracted to Neil are super smart, super passionate, and super competent. And so I believe that your followers, the people that watch, I think they can teach me a whole lot. And so that's what the goal is for to educate Bobby, to educate anyone. I think Kendra is going to be on here for a few
Yeah.
episodes to educate any of us from Doppel on sort of how we can impact and improve the organization and cybersecurity posture as a whole.
Bobby, thank you so very much. Thank you as always for the kind words. I'm excited for this. Chad, I'll ask you. Obviously, do me a couple favors. Right, we put Bobby's LinkedIn in chat. Please go follow Bobby. He's got great insights on LinkedIn and talks very frequently. And if you happen to catch him in his world travels, please feel free to stalk him
Yeah,
and
please
get a
do.
picture and a handshake with him. Um,
Yeah, please.
as always, hit that exclamation point Discord, hop on over into chat, give us some feedback on this stream, this content, because Bobby and I will take it back and we'll make sure that we're targeting it appropriately for what it is that you want to learn. Bobby, I'm super excited for this. Again, from the bottom of my heart, thank you so very much for spending time with me and my community. And we'll see you in 2 weeks.
Sounds good. Thank you. And thanks for everyone that was here.
All right, chat.